Welcome to the Maasto Fitness podcast. Today in episode 12, we're going to talk about how you can record heart rate, get accurate data, and what the data means. So this is a quick hit podcast where we keep them short and to the point, focusing on the things you can do off the bike to race faster and safer. At Maasto Fitness, we work with racers remotely in the real world. Many have a life full of commitments and don't have a lot of time to train off the bike or ride. We provide the training off the bike, so days on the bike, whether riding or racing, are faster and safer. So like I said today, we are going to talk about heart rate, how to record heart rate, how to interpret the data and what the data means, and how to get accurate data. So we will jump right into it. So first, how to record data. You want to do this with a heart rate monitor. So there's lots of brands out there, but I'll just go right off the bat and say I've been a Garmin user for, probably coming up on 14 or 15 years now, since the very early days of Garmin, where they were like huge watches that you had to turn on only when you were doing a workout and then turn back off, and you couldn't even use them in the rain because they would like literally die. So I've been a Garmin user since day one. There's lots of different brands to choose from. I think some of my personal favorites as a coach that I've seen over the years that just yield accurate results, don't seem to have too many problems, and athletes aren't spending a ton of time screwing around with are Garmin, Polar, and Wahoo for particular wearables. Now there's apps you can use when paired with a sensor, with a heart rate sensor, and other things you can do. But if you're looking for a pretty nice wearable, I would say Garmin, Polar, or heart rate, or Garmin, Polar, or Wahoo are my three favorite choices. Now that's for the device recording the heart rate. Like I said, you could also use an app. Another very popular one is using Polar Beat. So buying a Polar heart rate chest strap and then pairing that to an app on the phone. A lot of Maasto racers also use that. It's a good economical way to get accurate heart rate data. But the downside is if you want like GPS data, you need to have your phone on you while you're riding or racing. The Polar HR10 can save the heart rate data and then upload it to your phone afterwards. You can get the heart rate data, but you don't get the GPS overlay or speed info that you would with a wearable or with having your phone on you while you're out there with the Polar HR10 strap. So now we got that out of the way. I'm a Garmin user. I've been a Garmin user for a long time, but like I said, any of these devices are quality devices. You can even use like an Apple Watch if you've got a nicer Apple Watch, but I feel like there are some limits to those when you're looking at a device. A Garmin, I would say, for example, is a good fitness watch, an okay smartwatch. An Apple Watch, I would say, is a good smartwatch and an okay fitness watch. So there's trade-offs with those. Now, getting accurate data. There's two ways we can do this. We can do this with optical or with a chest strap. Now, these are two different ways to record data. So, for example, if you buy a newer, any of these, I'll say again, Garmin, Polar, Wahoo, or Apple Watch, it's got an optical sensor on the back of the watch. So if you flip that watch over and take a look, you'll see there's like little light sensors coming through, and that's optical heart rate. So that's a heart rate sensor built into the watch. And what it's doing is it's using infrared light to see the expansion of your arteries as your heart pumps blood through them. So now I'll say this is a cool idea. All in one, you don't have to have any additional thing on you, but I do not think it yields the best results. A couple reasons. First, our heart all the way at the center of our body and our chest, watch is on our wrist. That's a long ways away. It's not like getting the heart rate from the source. It's getting it kind of remotely at the arteries all the way out there in your hand. Two, bony protrusions, how tight the watch is on can all affect optical heart rate. So not going to get the best data a lot of times. And then three, not all racers like to wear a watch, especially when they're on their dirt bike. For me, excuse me, it's never been a big deal because I wear a watch 24/7. I have for a long time. So I don't even notice it on a dirt bike because I just always have a watch on. But if you're a person who's putting a watch on just for training off the bike or ride days, you might find that watch uncomfortable. So you want to mount it to your handlebars. So then that throws optical heart rate right out there because it's not going to record anything if it's not on your body. And now I have heard the argument that wearing a watch also implements or can constrict range of motion and or can cause wrist injuries. I've personally never seen anyone have a wrist injury from having a watch on riding a dirt bike. And I notice no difference in my range of motion, but that's just me. I always wear a watch, so it's just part of me. It feels very natural to have it on. Now, with that optical heart rate sensor, like I said, it's built into the watches. They do make like remote ones that you can also put further up on your arms, like near your bicep. But I'll just go back to say again, that's still quite a ways from the heart. So definitely not my favorite. I very much suggest a heart rate strap. So we'll jump into that now. Heart rate straps. So heart rate strap goes around your chest, right below your pecs, and works by measuring electrical signals from your heart. Now, I find these to be extremely accurate. They're like right there at the source. Some racers don't find them the most comfortable, but I found over the years that if you start to wear one during training, you start to get more and more used to it, and it just becomes part of you. So I would say if you're new to it, you're putting on a heart rate strap, you're not loving it, just give it a couple more tries. Sometimes you can use some basic like camo cream if you feel like it's rubbing a little weird on your sides or anything. Or like even just simple, a little bit of Vaseline if it feels pinchy anywhere, and oftentimes that will alleviate any discomfort. Now, I feel like hands down, like I said, that heart rate sensor is the most accurate way to record your heart rate. And you can pair that with a device. Like I said earlier, you could pair that with like the Polar Beat app for a more economical way. You know, you buy the heart rate strap for under 100, use an app on your phone, not a lot invested. For these other devices, I would say you're looking to spend around 200 is kind of like a good starting point for the watch, plus, you know, sub 100 for the heart rate strap. So you can get into heart rate training and get accurate data for around 100. But then you can go up from there and get a lot more data, get to see a lot more things when you get like, I'll say again, a Polar, a Garmin, a Wahoo, an Apple Watch. So lots of options there for ways you can get accurate heart rate data, but I suggest heart rate strap to anyone and everyone is the way to go. So now you've got the heart rate strap, you've got data. Now that data can help us adhere to training zones with a proper training plan. When we've got that heart rate strap on, we're going to see a reflection when we're training, for example, doing an aerobic session like biking or running. We're going to be able to see feedback from what our body is doing. Now, heart rate lags a little bit. That's just how the human body works. You take off for a sprint, your heart rate doesn't automatically jump up to maximum effort or 180 beats per minute. It takes a couple seconds or a minute for it to catch up. So that's natural for the body to do that. But when we're doing efforts or when we're doing steady state ride or tempos or whatever it may be, when we've got our device paired with that heart rate monitor, we're able to see what we need to see and help understand what our body is doing. So by wearing a heart rate monitor, we can see what our heart rate's doing. We can adjust, you know, are we going too hard? Are we going too easy? And by doing that when paired with a proper training plan, we're going to not overcook it or undercook it when we're out there. So man, I'm losing my words today. A heart rate strap, when paired to proper zones, when paired to proper training, is going to help us yield the best results, reduce our chance of injury, and reduce our chance of burnout as well. Now, there's the opposite scenario. Let's say you've got proper heart rate zones, like I talked about in our previous episode about how to set those. You've got a chest strap and you've got workouts, but you're finding you're having a hard time hitting the numbers for the workout. You're not able to get them as high, or you're finding a couple days in a row this has happened. Well, that's a really cool thing about heart rate training is it's good insight to what's going on in our body. And for example, as a coach, oftentimes if a racer isn't able to hit their zones, especially not just one off, like if we have a day where things just aren't working out and racers having a hard time hitting their zones in an aerobic session, well, It could be a number of things. I usually try to not go too deep into it because it could just have been an off day. It happens to all of us. But now if it's happening to a racer for a week, 2 weeks, multiple sessions in a row, then we want to dig deeper. And oftentimes it can be a lot of things, but a couple of the biggest ones are not getting proper nutrition in, proper hydration, not enough sleep, life stress. Those are the big ones that can often cause issues that heart rate won't respond. And as a coach, I've seen it's not that heart rate's through the roof. It's higher. Oftentimes it won't go as high as we want it to because the body's stressed out, not getting the nutrients it needs, or overtired. So that heart rate training with a chest strap definitely can give us a bit of insight, give us some really good insight on what's going on with the body. Now, what about racing? If you have a heart rate monitor, I highly suggest wearing it racing. For me, I wear one every time I'm on my dirt bike because I feel it gives me really good insight to what's going on with me. I think a perfect example is I recently had my first race of the year. It was an enduro. The first section, they had like a check halfway through the race. And for some reason, I thought that was the end of the section, which I should have known better in the moment. That was really only halfway through. But I hit that middle section and I was like kind of confused. I was like, oh, I'm done. And I slowed up for a minute and then I was like, wait, that can't be it. And I took back off. And after the race, I look at my heart rate numbers from that test, and you can see about halfway through, my heart rate just dives right down for a couple seconds. And then it's down for, I don't know, probably 15 seconds, and then shoots back up because I was like, wait, that makes no sense. I need to keep going. So a good example for me, I thought, well, the section's over, I'm done. And then I was like, no, I got to get going. And when I go back and look at the data, well, I can see, wow, yeah, I really did slow up and recover there because you can see the heart rate go right down. I mean, I can see speed data and GPS data and everything else, but looking at the heart rate, it just dives right off. Which is just a great example of me showing myself how much time I've probably lost in that section that I gave up just by, I don't know, having a lapse in judgment, I guess, for a minute there. But heart rate data can tell you so much racing. Sometimes when I'm looking at a racer's data and we have a really high heart rate early, like for example, talk about like a GNCC, and then as the race goes on, that heart rate data tapers down lower and lower and lower. It can be a couple things, but oftentimes I find that's going out too hard. So they were able to go out at a maximum effort, but that effort was not sustainable for the duration of the race. And that fade in heart rate was because they just can't hold it that high, whether it was above like their ability that they had, or they were overtired coming into the race. Could be a lot of things. But if that's happening time and time again, maybe the racer needs to adjust their pacing. We'd ideally want even heart rate across a race, or even heart rate raising a little bit as the race goes on. So we're able to maintain or increase our effort. We don't want it to taper off. And like I said, it could be a lot of things with that heart rate data. It could have been improper nutrition, proper hydration, overtired, going out way too hard at a much higher level than their fitness allows. So with a heart rate strap and proper zones, you can look into your race and see what you did. If you're racing motocross and you've got practice, and then you're racing 2 classes, so maybe 4 motos, and you look at those motos, was heart rate consistent across all of them? Were you able to maintain the same heart rate on the first moto as the last moto? Yes, no. If no, why not? Was it conditions? Was it you weren't fueling enough between? Was it you're going out way too hard in those early motos in the day and you weren't able to sustain them at the end? Those are all things you can look at. And with a chest strap, it's just going to be very accurate and tell you what you need. And like I said, optical heart rate, it'll give you data, but it will not be nearly as accurate. I've found time and time again. It won't give you the peaks and valleys. The average oftentimes will be the same, but you won't get to see the micro changes and the really hard efforts and when recovery happened, like you can with a chest strap. So if you're looking at all for a chest strap or a watch and you're trying to figure out what to get, send me a message on Instagram. I'm glad to give you my recommendations because, like I said, there's a lot of devices out there, and we can go from a couple hundred to over 1,000 pretty easily in watches. So depending on your budget and what you're looking for, tons and tons of options. I will say, if you're going to start shopping right now, I would suggest the Garmin Forerunner series. I think if you start with a number over a 245, so a Garmin 245 or higher, they go up to 965 right now. So Garmin 245, start that at kind of the base, work your way up from there, and then pair it with a Garmin chest strap or with a Polar chest strap is a good place to go. Another device Garmin makes is called the Phoenix series. I would not suggest the Phoenix 5 anymore. That's getting a little dated. It's not going to have support for a long time, but a Phoenix 6 or 7, if you're looking for that watch, very similar to the Forerunner series, just kind of can do a couple different things, has a different look for sure. But then once again, pairing it with a chest strap, either a Garmin chest strap or a Polar chest strap. So that's all I've got for heart rate. And yeah, simple as that. Next week, we'll go a little bit deeper into heart rate again and talk about what specifically is happening with your body with each zone and why you need these zones, and how recovery after races and training after races in zone 1 will actually help you bounce back and race faster and be able to get your training in the following week. So easy enough as that. And I always like to keep in mind at Maasto Fitness, we build strength, endurance, and mobility training for racers and have tons of hydration and nutrition guides. If you ever want to give it a try, send me a message on Instagram and I'll hook you up with a free week of our single jump training program to give it a try.